Security walked me out at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. After 8 years with this company, after everything my family built here, I was getting the perp walk because some hotshot CEO thought I was dead weight. Bradley Hutchinson had no idea what he'd just done. I'm Nathan Ashford, 52 years old, and I guess you could say I've been playing a very long game. See, while Bradley was strutting around Ashford Manufacturing Corp. Thinking he ran the place, I actually owned 85% of it through a family trust nobody knew about. The irony wasn't lost on me as security officer Danny Reynolds, a guy I'd known for 12 years, awkwardly followed me to my car. "Sorry about this, Mr. Ashford," Danny whispered. "This doesn't feel right." "Don't worry about it, Danny. Just doing your job." But I wasn't really okay with it. I was pissed. Let me back up a bit. When my father stepped down as CEO 8 months ago, the board hired Bradley from outside the company. Fresh perspective, they said. New energy. I supported the decision at first. Maybe I was too close to see what needed changing. Boy, was I wrong. Bradley came in like a tornado. First week, he moved my office from the executive floor down to the 8th. Said they needed space for key personnel. I bit my tongue. Second week, he cut my consulting budget by 40% without explanation. Third week, he started laying off people who'd been with us for decades. That should have been my red flag right there. See, Ashford Manufacturing isn't just any company. We've been family-owned since my grandfather started it in 1963. Started with 6 employees making industrial equipment parts in a rented warehouse on the south side of Chicago. Today, we're pulling in $850 million annually with 2,800 employees across 4 facilities. The secret to our ownership structure goes back to my grandfather's paranoia about hostile takeovers in the 1980s. He set up this complex trust arrangement that keeps the majority ownership completely private. As far as anyone knows, including Bradley, the board, even most of our executives. I'm just Nathan Ashford, senior operations consultant. Only 4 people knew the truth. My father, our family lawyer James Morrison, our CFO Patricia Wells, and me. That's it. The trust documents are locked away so tight that even our board of directors had no clue about the real ownership structure. I could have pulled rank on day 1 when Bradley started making changes I didn't like, but I wanted to see what kind of leader he really was. Would he respect what we'd built? Would he care about our people? The answer became crystal clear over those 8 months. Bradley's first quarterly report was a disaster. Revenue was down 8% despite having a strong market position. He blamed market conditions and legacy inefficiencies. But I knew better. Our cash reserves were actually strong. About $125 million in working capital, which was solid for a company our size. The revenue decline wasn't about market conditions. It was about Bradley's decisions. He outsourced our customer service department to a call center in Phoenix to save $2.3 million annually. Sounds smart on paper, right? Wrong. Our customer satisfaction scores dropped 23% in 6 months. We lost 3 major clients who'd been with us for over 15 years. They cited poor communication and lack of responsiveness. Then he canceled our annual employee picnic, a tradition we'd maintained for 35 years, because it was non-essential spending. The picnic cost us $45,000 a year. For a company with $850 million in revenue, That's like skipping lunch to save money. But the worst part was watching what it did to morale. Employee satisfaction surveys, which we conduct twice yearly, showed a 35% decline. People were scared, angry, confused. These weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These were families depending on us for their livelihoods. I tried talking to Bradley about it. 3 different times I requested meetings to discuss the direction of the company. Each time, he brushed me off with corporate speak about staying in your lane and trusting the process. The final straw came last Tuesday morning. I was in my office reviewing client retention reports when Bradley's assistant, Jennifer Walsh, knocked on my door. She looked uncomfortable, which should have been my first clue. "Mr. Ashford? Mr. Hutchinson wants to see you in Conference Room B." Conference Room B was the small one, the one they use for disciplinary meetings. I walked in to find Bradley sitting at the head of the table with HR Director Thomas Gray. Thomas had a manila folder in front of him, which was never a good sign. Bradley didn't even look up from his phone. "Nathan, we're going to have to let you go." Just like that. No build-up, no explanation, no acknowledgement of my 8 years with the company or my family's 60-year history here. "I'm sorry," I said, sitting down slowly. "Your position is being eliminated as part of our restructuring initiative. The board has approved a 15% reduction in consulting staff, and your role has been deemed redundant." Thomas slid the folder across the table. "Your severance package is quite generous. 12 weeks pay plus benefits continuation through the end of the year." I opened the folder and pretended to read through the termination paperwork. "This is effective immediately?" "Yes," Bradley said, finally putting his phone down. "Security will escort you out. Standard procedure for all departing employees." That's when it hit me. After everything. After my grandfather building this company from nothing. After my father growing it into a regional powerhouse. After 8 years of my own sweat and dedication, I was getting walked out like some kind of security risk. But here's the thing about playing a long game. You learn patience. You learn to wait for the right moment. I signed the papers without arguing, shook hands with Thomas, walked out with Danny following behind me, both of us pretending this was normal. As soon as I got to my car, I called James Morrison. "They fired you?" James couldn't believe it. "On what grounds?" "Position elimination." Bradley's cleaning house. "Nathan, you know you can end this anytime you want. I know, but I want to do this right. Call an emergency board meeting for this afternoon. Tell them the majority shareholder is invoking Clause 47B. There was a pause. "The nuclear option?" "The nuclear option." Clause 47B was my grandfather's masterpiece of corporate paranoia. Buried deep in our company charter, it allows the majority shareholder to call an immediate board meeting and assume direct control if they believe management is acting against shareholder and employee interests. Nobody had ever used it. Hell, most people didn't even know it existed. James scheduled the emergency meeting for 3 p.m., exactly 3 hours and 13 minutes after Bradley fired me. I spent that time putting together a presentation, but not about my termination. That was just the catalyst. This was about 8 months of watching Bradley systematically destroy everything we'd built. The numbers told the whole story. Revenue down 8% from $850 million to $782 million year over year. Employee satisfaction dropped 35% in 8 months. Customer retention lost 3 major accounts worth $47 million combined. Customer service ratings down 23% since outsourcing. Operating costs actually up 12% despite all the efficiency measures. But here's what really got me. Our profit margins were down 15%, even with the layoffs. Bradley had cut muscle, not fat. He'd fired experienced people making $65,000 annually and hired inexperienced replacements at $45,000, thinking he was saving money. Instead, productivity dropped, error rates increased, and we were spending more on training and overtime than we saved on salaries. At 2:50 p.m., I walked back into the Ashford manufacturing building. Carlos Martinez, our front desk security guard, did a double take. "Mr. Ashford, I thought you were, I heard emergency board meeting, Carlos." "I'm expected." I took the elevator to the 20th floor. Through the glass doors of our main conference room, I could see all 7 board members. Patricia Wells, CFO, Thomas Gray, HR, Linda Foster, Operations, Richard Sterling, Marketing, Margaret Hunt, Legal, Paul Anderson, Finance, and of course, Bradley. James was already there with a stack of legal documents that looked about 3 inches thick. I walked in at exactly 3 p.m. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for accommodating this meeting on short notice." Bradley looked annoyed. "Nathan, I'm not sure what kind of stunt you're trying to pull here, but you no longer work for this company. Security should have escorted you out." "Actually, Bradley, that's exactly what we need to discuss." James stepped forward. "If I may, I need to read something into the record." He opened the top document. "As of this date, Nathan William Ashford, acting as majority shareholder of Ashford Manufacturing Corporation, is invoking Clause 47B of the corporate charter." I watched Bradley's face as James read through the legal language. Confusion first, like he was trying to process words in a foreign language. Then disbelief, like someone had just told him gravity was optional. Then something approaching panic as the implications hit him. "I'm sorry," Bradley interrupted. "Majority shareholder? There must be some mistake." Patricia Wells spoke up. She'd been keeping this secret for 15 years, and I could see the relief on her face as she finally got to tell the truth. "There's no mistake, Bradley. Nathan owns 85% of the company through the Ashford Family Trust, established in 1987. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop in the hallway. Richard Sterling, who'd been on our board for 12 years, leaned back in his chair and started laughing. "Well, I'll be damned. That explains a lot." "This is impossible," Bradley said, his voice getting higher. "I would have been told about this when I was hired. Due diligence would have revealed this." "No," I said calmly. "You wouldn't have been told. The trust structure specifically prevents disclosure except under certain circumstances, like when the majority shareholder believes management is causing material damage to the company." Margaret Hunt, our legal advisor, nodded. "I remember reviewing the charter when I joined the board. I always wondered about that clause, but I assumed it was just boilerplate language." "It's not boilerplate," James said. "It's very specific, and it's being properly invoked." I stood up and walked to the whiteboard where James had set up my presentation materials. Over the past 8 months, this company has experienced significant decline across multiple key performance indicators. I went through the numbers methodically. Every chart, every graph, every survey result painted the same picture. Bradley's leadership wasn't just ineffective, it was actively destructive. Revenue decline of 8% in a growing market, I continued. We should have grown 12% based on industry trends. That's a 20-point swing in the wrong direction. Paul Anderson, our finance board member, was taking notes. Nathan, these numbers, are they accurate? Patricia can confirm them. She's been tracking all of this. Patricia nodded. Every number Nathan is presenting comes directly from our internal reports. I've been documenting the decline since month 4 of Bradley's tenure. Why didn't you bring this to our attention? Linda Foster asked. I tried, Patricia said. I sent 3 separate memos to Bradley requesting board review of the performance metrics. He told me it was premature to panic and that the trends would reverse. Bradley was getting defensive. Look, any major transition involves some temporary setbacks. You can't judge 8 months of leadership based on short-term fluctuations. You're right, I said. You can't judge leadership on numbers alone, but you can judge it on decisions. I clicked to the next slide. Here's a timeline of major decisions made over the past 8 months. Month 1, moved senior staff to smaller offices without consultation. Month 2, cut consulting and training budgets by 40%. Month 3, outsourced customer service, laid off 23 employees. Month 4, canceled employee recognition programs. Month 5, eliminated annual picnic and holiday party. Month 6, restructured commission plans, reducing sales team compensation. Month 7, instituted new efficiency protocols that increased bureaucracy. Month 8, terminated senior consultant without board approval. Each of these decisions, I continued, was made unilaterally without board input, despite our corporate governance requiring board approval for major policy changes. Thomas Gray was looking uncomfortable. Bradley, is this accurate? You didn't get board approval for the outsourcing decision? I was given authority to manage day-to-day operations, Bradley said. Day-to-day operations, yes, Margaret Hunt said, but major structural changes require board review. It's in your employment contract. The meeting was turning into an interrogation, and Bradley was losing ground fast. I could see Bradley scrambling, trying to find solid ground in a conversation that was slipping away from him fast. But I wasn't done yet. There's something else, I said, clicking to my final slide. This morning, I was terminated from my position allegedly due to position elimination. But according to my consulting contract, termination requires board approval for any reason other than gross misconduct. Thomas Gray's face went pale. Bradley, you didn't get board approval for that termination. I didn't think I needed it for a consulting position, Bradley said, but his voice was getting shaky. You did, Patricia confirmed. It's specifically outlined in Section 12 of his contract. I helped draft it. Margaret Hunt was flipping through documents on her tablet. According to our governance rules, any termination of personnel above director level requires board vote. Consulting positions at Nathan's level definitely qualify. So, not only did Bradley make unauthorized changes to company structure, I continued, he also violated my employment contract and corporate governance procedures. Bradley stood up abruptly. Look, Nathan, I think we can work this out. Maybe the termination was premature. We can discuss reinstatement. Actually, Bradley, reinstatement isn't really the issue anymore. The room got quiet again. I could feel the tension building. Effective immediately, I'm exercising my rights as majority shareholder to remove Bradley Hutchinson as Chief Executive Officer of Ashford Manufacturing Corporation. If the room was quiet before, now it was like a tomb. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Bradley's face went through about 6 different expressions in 10 seconds. You can't do this. I have a contract. I have rights. James Morrison stepped forward with another document. Your contract includes a termination clause that applies when you're removed for cause. Breach of fiduciary duty qualifies as cause under Illinois corporate law. This is insane, Bradley said, his voice cracking. I've been trying to modernize this company, make it competitive. You people are stuck in the past. Modernize? I stood up, and for the first time in this whole meeting, I let my anger show. You call firing loyal employees modernization? You call destroying customer relationships competitive? You call alienating our workforce getting stuck in the past? Richard Sterling spoke up. Bradley, I've been in business for 30 years. What you did isn't modernization. It's just bad management. The numbers don't lie, Paul Anderson added. Our profitability is down despite cost cutting. That's the opposite of what should happen. Bradley was gathering his papers, but his hands were shaking. This is a mistake. You're going to run this company into the ground with that old school thinking. Maybe, I said, but it'll be my company to run into the ground. Linda Foster raised her hand. Nathan, assuming you're taking control, what's your immediate plan? It was a fair question, and one I'd been thinking about for months. First priority is damage control. We're reversing the layoffs. Every person Bradley terminated gets their job back if they want it. Based on exit interviews, I estimate 18 of the 23 will return. That's going to cost about $1.1 million annually, Paul calculated. Money we have, Patricia confirmed. Our cash reserves can handle it. And frankly, the productivity gains will offset the costs within 6 months. Second, I continued, we're bringing customer service back in-house. The Phoenix call center contract has a 30-day termination clause. We'll have our people back by month's end. What about the facilities costs? Thomas asked. We kept the customer service floor. Bradley wanted to convert it to storage, but I convinced facilities to hold off. Good thing. Margaret Hunt was taking notes. What about the clients we lost? I've already reached out to 2 of the 3. Henderson Industries and Midwest Manufacturing are willing to discuss returning if we can demonstrate improved service levels. That's $32 million in annual revenue we can potentially recover. Bradley was still standing there, looking like someone had just told him Santa Claus wasn't real. You're making a mistake. The market has changed. You can't run a business like it's 1995. You're right, I said. It's not 1995. But it's also not 2008, when everyone thought cutting everything in sight was smart business. It's 2024. And what matters now is relationships, quality, and treating people with respect. Paul Anderson leaned forward. Nathan, what about long-term leadership? Are you planning to stay as CEO? Interim CEO, I corrected. I'll run things for 90 days while we figure out permanent leadership. Honestly, I think Patricia should be our next CEO. She's been here 15 years, knows the business inside and out, and has the respect of our employees. Patricia looked surprised. Nathan, I appreciate that, but think about it, I said. No pressure. But you've been doing half the CEO job anyway, while Bradley was being Bradley. The formal vote was quick. 7 board members. Unanimous decision to remove Bradley Hutchinson as CEO and install me as interim CEO, effective immediately. Bradley finally headed for the door. "This is a mistake," he said one more time. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but at least I'll regret it with my own decisions, not someone else's." After he left, the room relaxed for the first time in hours. Richard Sterling started laughing again. "Nathan, I have to ask, how long have you been planning this?" "Planning what? Getting fired?" "That wasn't planned." "No, I mean the dramatic reveal. The secret ownership, the whole thing. I thought about it. Honestly, I've been waiting 8 months to see if Bradley would prove me wrong. If he'd shown that he cared about our people, our culture, our long-term success, I would have supported him completely." "And when did you know he wouldn't?" Linda asked. "Month 3, when he laid off Martha Henderson from accounting. She'd been with us 23 years, never missed a day, knew every client account by heart. He fired her to save $48,000 annually and replaced her with someone making $35,000 who needed 6 months of training." Patricia nodded. "I remember that. Martha trained her own replacement, even though she knew she was being let go." "That's when I knew Bradley didn't understand what we were about," I said. "This isn't just a business. It's a community. You don't throw away 23 years of loyalty to save money you don't even need to save." The meeting wrapped up with logistics, communication strategy, transition planning, immediate priorities, standard corporate stuff. But it felt different now. It felt like we were planning to fix something instead of managing decline. As everyone filed out, Patricia stayed behind. "Nathan, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. Why didn't you step in sooner? You could have stopped all of this months ago." I looked out the window at the Chicago skyline. "Because I wanted to be wrong about Bradley. I wanted him to succeed. Sometimes good people make bad decisions," I continued. "I thought maybe Bradley just needed time to understand our culture. Maybe he'd see that treating people well isn't just good morals. It's good business." Patricia sat down across from me. "And when did you realize he wouldn't?" "When he canceled the Christmas bonuses last December. Said we needed to manage cash flow more efficiently." "We had $125 million in reserves, Patricia. Those bonuses cost us $340,000 or total. It wasn't about money. It was about power." She nodded. "A lot of people were really hurt by that." "I know, and that's on me for not acting sooner." The next morning, word had already spread through the building. By 8 a.m., there were 20 reporters in our lobby asking about the secret ownership revelation. The Chicago Tribune had the story online by 10 a.m. with the headline, "Family Heir Takes Control After Boardroom Coup." But honestly, the media attention wasn't what mattered to me. What mattered was the text I got from Danny Reynolds at 7:30 a.m. "Mr. Ashford, heard the news. Thank you for fighting for us." That text meant more than any newspaper article. My first week as interim CEO was intense. I spent most of it undoing Bradley's changes and dealing with the fallout. The customer service transition took 3 weeks instead of the planned 2, because our Phoenix contractor tried to hold us to a 90-day notice period. James Morrison had to threaten legal action to get them to honor the 30-day clause. But the employee recalls went smoother than expected. Of the 23 people Bradley had laid off, 19 wanted to come back. The 4 who didn't had already found other jobs they were happy with, which I respected. Martha Henderson from accounting was the first to accept. "Mr. Ashford, she said. When I called her personally, I never thought I'd be coming back. Well, you're not just coming back, Martha. I'm promoting you to accounting supervisor. It's a $12,000 raise, and you'll be training the new people Bradley hired. I could hear her crying on the other end of the phone. Thank you. This means everything to my family. That's when I knew we were doing the right thing. The numbers started improving almost immediately. Customer service ratings went up 15% in the first month, just from having our own people back. Henderson Industries agreed to resume their contract after a site visit, where they met with our restored customer service team. That was $18 million in annual revenue back on the books. Midwest Manufacturing took longer to convince, but they came back too after we demonstrated 2 months of improved performance metrics. Another $14 million annually. By month 3, we were tracking ahead of our recovery projections. Revenue was up 12% from Bradley's low point, putting us just 3% below our historical baseline. More importantly, employee satisfaction surveys showed a 28% improvement from the Bradley era. The board meeting where we discussed permanent CEO succession was probably the easiest corporate decision I've ever been part of. Patricia Wells was the unanimous choice. She'd been doing the job anyway. Bradley had delegated most operational decisions to her, while he focused on strategic initiatives that usually involved cutting something. Patricia, I said during her official offer meeting, you've earned this position 10 times over. The question is whether you want it. She smiled. Nathan, I've been wanting to fix this company for 8 months. Now, I finally get the chance. Her first day as CEO was 6 months after Bradley's firing. I transitioned to chairman of the board, which honestly suited me better. I could focus on long-term strategy and family legacy stuff without getting bogged down in day-to-day operations. Bradley, by the way, landed a position with a consulting firm in Dallas. I heard through industry contacts that he's doing fine. No hard feelings on my end. Some people just aren't the right fit for certain situations. About a year later, I was cleaning out my father's old desk when I found a letter he'd written but never sent. It was addressed to me, dated 3 days after Bradley was hired. Nathan, it read, I hope I made the right decision stepping down. This company is your inheritance, but more than that, it's your responsibility. I trust you to know when to act and when to wait. Your grandfather built something special here. Don't let anyone destroy it, even if they have good intentions. I sat there, reading that letter 3 times. My father had known. Maybe not the specifics, but he'd sensed that Bradley might not work out, and he'd trusted me to handle it. As I write this, it's been 18 months since that Tuesday when security walked me out. Ashford Manufacturing is doing better than ever. Revenue hit $920 million last year, up 18% from Bradley's final numbers. We've hired 240 new employees. Customer satisfaction is at an all-time high. More importantly, people want to work here again. Our employee retention rate is 94%, compared to 67% during Bradley's tenure. The annual employee picnic last summer had over 1,800 people show up, families included. Patricia gave a speech about getting back to our roots, and honestly, there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. I learned something important through all this. Power isn't about the title on your door or the size of your office. It's about knowing when to use it and when to hold back. For 8 months, I watched someone make decisions that hurt people I cared about. I could have stopped it on day one, but I wanted to give Bradley every chance to succeed. Maybe that was naive. Maybe I should have acted sooner. But I think there's value in patience, in letting people prove who they really are before you judge them. The best revenge isn't about making someone pay for their mistakes. It's about fixing what they broke and making sure it doesn't happen again. Bradley Hutchinson taught me that lesson, though I doubt he meant to. Sometimes the best teachers are the ones who show you exactly what not to do. These days, I spend most of my time thinking about the next generation. Patricia's doing a great job as CEO, but she's 51. We need to start planning for the future, building a leadership pipeline that can carry this company forward for another 60 years. My grandfather would be proud, I think. He built something that survived his paranoia, my father's caution, my patience, and Bradley's ambition. That's not luck. That's good bones. And good bones last forever, as long as someone's willing to protect them.